Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Personal Branding Secrets. My name is Ash Borland, your personal branding coach, helping you embrace your individuality and stand out from the crowd so you can build that profitable and, more importantly, sustainable personal brand business. If you're new to the show, make sure to smash the subscribe button, ring the bell if you're watching on YouTube to be kept up to date with all the latest content. And if you're listening to us on iTunes or Spotify or Google Play or any other podcast platform, then please make sure to share it with your friends and tell everyone it's the best show you've ever listened to, because realistically, come on, guys, we know it is. So today we've got Interview with an Expert, which is our Wednesday special, where I get to sit down and interview an incredible guest to talk to you about what he's an expert in. So this week we have the one and only Gary Dass. So Gary Dass, me and Gary actually go way back. Gary started off in the mortgage industry, creating mortgage content around video and informative content around mortgages. But what he did, which was quite interesting, is he started to pave the way for being himself as the brand and really building a personal brand business in mortgages. The guy now is a best-selling author. He's a business coach. He's amazing. I like to refer to him as the process king, because the guy is process driven beyond belief, like the next level in process. No one else calls him the process king, but I'm going to make that stick. Eventually, guys, if you start speaking to him and you know him, call him the process king, because it won't wind him. Well, hopefully it won't wind him up. It's a good thing. But it's quite funny. I think we talk about it actually in the show as to how much of a process driven guy this guy is. So let's bring him on. But first, let's run the intro. Hello, mate. How are you?
I'm very well, mate. You?
Yeah, very good. I love that. I keep thinking about your funny jumper.
As my best mate said to me at the time, like, you got to stop wearing your dad's jumpers. I was like, right, they are going, they are gone. Tank top, basically, jumper, tank tops over a shirt
and shorts. That's literally all. Like, whenever I think of you now, I just think of shorts.
Mate, I've got them on now.
Yeah, well, you will do. You got your tattoo done, though, haven't you? So you've got to get air to it. It's very nice, by the way. I like it.
It's a long time, mate. When you look at the size of my legs, we were measuring, it was like 27 inches. I'm like, this is going to cost me a fortune. I'm going to be in the chair for days.
Oh, mate, when you talk, like, literally like 50% of my body is tattooed. And I remember my tattoo artist, who he's actually been on the show. We were on the first guest. He said when he was like, Ash, your back is fucking huge. He was like, this is not, and he said the problem with that is every time you stretch it, and legs as well, you train legs a lot. So like that's the worst, and it's very painful. That my wife has a full leg sleeve like on there, and that's probably the inner thigh. Are you doing the whole thing inside as well?
Yeah, I think so. Ooh. It was hurting on the inner bit when he was doing it a couple of days ago. It was far too much.
Inner thigh, mate, is a killer. That's
inner thigh. I look forward to the inner thigh.
You got to put it up on. You got to put it up on your Instagram and see the stories of that. That'd be quite
exactly. I'll be sharing it if it happens.
Honestly, it's the worst one. Thanks so much for coming on the podcast, mate. And like I say, I'm really excited to have you on. And this is the first time where we've actually had you on a podcast. We did a live thing in my group at the beginning of lockdown, but this is the first time where we actually go deep into you. So it'd be really, really cool. So I like to start off the first question I always ask people, which is really sets the stage for everything else. I call it, what is your superhero origin story? So really, can we give a bit of a background to who Gary Dass is? I know I've given you the intro, but what do you do? How did you get where you are now and build this personal brand?
I'll give you kind of the original mistake one. So I started effectively, I didn't really know what I wanted to do at the age of 22. I'd had quite successful jobs. I was earning a lot of money in temporary jobs in pension review and stuff. I'm definitely an office worker. There's no way I was going to do anything other than work in an office. But my parents went through hard times when I was in my early teens. So like I was working on Northfield Market and boot fairs when I was 13 with my dad selling and stuff. And you kind of realize now how much of an impact that has. But the long story short, 2003, didn't know what I wanted to do. Dad said, go and work for a bank. I was a cashier in Woolwich in Chelmsford. Within a couple of weeks, I was opening accounts because I was good at moving people across and doing that. Then when I went to opening accounts, I was good at getting people across to mortgage and the WIFAS advisor, the Woolwich Independent Financial Advisor. And they just said, do you want to be a mortgage broker? I was like, all right, I don't know, 22 years old. I'll just go out and get drunk, to be honest. And I did actually have a mate's dad who was a financial advisor, and he used to earn a hell of a lot of money. And the whole thing, personal brand, from his perspective, he was out in the evening. He didn't work during the days. It was all built on relationships. He used to do, he'd look after his friends. He'd look after their kids. They'd refer him to someone else. And that was kind of the first insight to personal brand from that point of view. And I thought, oh, okay. So when I was at Woolwich, they then shoved me in a little town called Southwood and Ferris, where the age demographic does not need a mortgage. And effectively, through my employed career, I was at Woolwich, Connells, top of the high street. Car park was at the bottom, no leads. Woolwich, no leads. I was working for a brokerage where you had to be in Norwich at 8 o'clock at night, and then we're expected back in 9 o'clock in the morning, which is like a 2-hour drive and everything else. So I was just like, I've got no life. Went to London.
Norwich from Essex, where you live. That's where they wanted you.
Yeah, you'd be out doing face-to-face appointments in the evening, and they'd want you back at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock back in the morning again. So I just jacked that off and went to London. But first, be in London by 9 o'clock, I'd have to be up at 6:30. Last appointment at 8, 7 o'clock, finish at 8, home by 10. I got to one of the top performers in AH. I did really well in the short space that I was there, and I could see I was on par to go to, to be one of the good ones. But it was just like, I've got no life. Yeah. I don't like this. And an advert came up in a paper in 2005, new brokerage in Chelmsford. Do you want to come and join? I spoke to the owner, and it was basically on day one, it was me, a girl called Emma, and the owner, Pete, who had got investment from elsewhere. And over the course of 12 months, specialising in adverse credit, we basically, between the three of us, grew the business to 100 grand a month with a small team. I was sales and compliance, so I'd kind of been running the business anyway. Emma was all back office and admin, and Pete was in the cinema every day. I was like, Dad, I've built a company for somebody else in the space of 12 months. I know about compliance. I know about recruitment. I've done estate agents. I've done brokering. I've done London. I want to go self-employed because I know how to generate leads. And he lent me 2.5 grand. And in November of 2006, I basically went self-employed. And I was doing it all face-to-face. I was driving around the M25 and then realized that was 2 hours of a day wasted. So I moved it to over the phone. Then 2008, we got hit by the credit crunch just as I was about to start recruitment. And I went from being in a network where, your compliance is outsourced to being directly authorized because the restrictions on what I wanted to do were just too much for me. And I wanted to sell my own ship. So I became directly authorized in 2008. And then the credit crunch hit. So I built an insurance brokerage for 7 years. Always buying leads throughout the whole 7 years. It's my biggest mistake. I did nothing at all in terms of understanding marketing, personal branding, lead generation. It was a spreadsheet game. I knew that if I spent X, I'd get Y number of leads, I would make Z number of sales, and it would be boom, job done. But I grew a business that I hated. I was back to work 3 days after my daughter was born. I was constantly felt like I had a noose around my neck because I was just paying this 20 grand a month out and, buying low quality leads. There was no customer loyalty because they were just coming through third-party websites. And in 2015, the wife and I wanted to move to the house that we're now in. And my bank turned around and said, no, you can't have a mortgage because you've left all your money in the business and you haven't withdrawn it as dividends. So me not really taking no for an answer is probably my kind of attitude. And there must be a way to make this happen. So I'd always been biding my time for that 7 years, or probably half of that 7 years, wanting to get back into the mortgage industry. And in doing that, I found my opportunity because I basically phoned every lender throughout the whole of the UK and found a whole entire niche of self-employed mortgages. In July, we submitted a mortgage application. In October, we moved into the house. I had at the time almost seven-figure insurance brokerage. And in October, I basically got rid of everybody bar 3. And January 2016 opened again as a mortgage broker specializing in self-employed mortgages. And I realized that if I was going to do something different, I needed to understand how to generate leads. And I basically started researching online. How do I take this self-employed mortgage niche How do I attract self-employed clients? How do I build my self-employed, arm? And I think I've said to you before, I saw a guy in the fitness industry, Jamie Alderton is his name. He's now got a massive personal brand. And I just followed his journey.
He's amazing. I absolutely love him. He's one of the reasons why I resonated with you. When you mentioned him, I was like, amazing. Like, the guy's incredible.
Yeah. And I resonated with him. I saw him kind of come out of the, being in the army, come out of the army, start off this real small personal training studio, and then, develop that and doing content and adding value and doing video. And in 2016, I just thought to myself, well, in 2015, I thought to myself, well, this social media thing, as much as I don't want to be on it, because I'm sick of seeing all the woe is me stories and all the food posts that went around at that point in time, it was a free marketing tool. So I just started posting on social media in 2016 and talking about the transition that I've been through and how to help self-employed, and every client that basically I was finding or coming to me and saying, oh, how much deposit do I need for a self-employed mortgage? I'd just talk about it on a social media post. And I'd go and find business owner groups where there was, 5, 10, 20,000 people in a group. And I'd be like, just tell a story about it or put a little bit of information in there about it. And then by April, I was getting roughly 7 leads a month, and I was probably doing 3 or 4 posts a day. By the June, my confidence had grown, and I started doing pre-recorded videos of all the questions that I'd already answered in written. I started to do as video. By October, I did my first live, and I got reminders. Every year you get bloody Facebook memories, don't you? So I get reminders of my November 2016 30 lives in 30 days challenge, which basically got rid of all fears of live video. And I suppose the long story short is just that fact of, I realized I needed to get a different result. So I started to build a personal brand and just answer the common questions that clients were asking me through social media, through marketing, through lead generation, through Facebook, which grew to Instagram, which grew to LinkedIn, which grew to podcasting. And over time, the more I hung around with business owners, the more leads I started to get, and the more I felt more confident to do more of it. And it kind of snowballed onto a new business, a massive community, being a personal brand in my industry, not just in, self-employed mortgages, I suppose.
No, well, you'd won, like, that's like I say, for obviously I'm not in that space anymore, but for me when I was in it, like, you were the first person I'd seen, which was really interesting, because you were the first person I'd seen who, the Jamie Alston thing, I'll tell you about a bit of that, because Jamie Alston, I had the guy obviously before the episode before me was Ash Edelman, who knows Jamie, and they're both in the same industry, and they know each other not quite well, but they know each other enough. And we're talking about that, how for me, and that's why your story resonated. For me, this stuff all started in the fitness industry.
Yeah.
Started there. Like,
me agree.
Yeah, like, and that's what
me agree. What sort of English is that?
Me agree.
Me agree. Yeah, that's my son. That is. That's my son. That is, I'll tell you.
And he was saying this. It's like it started there, and I remember listening to it. This would be so good because I can nerd out a bit on Jamie Alden here. Is do you remember the original Mindset with Muscle podcast?
Yeah.
That was the first podcast I'd ever listened to. I used to drive to my estate agency job in Royston. Or my estate was actually my mortgage job, but I was in the estate agents, and listening to that every Thursday. I was like, oh my God, it's amazing. And it was his first podcast, and he was recording it on his mobile phone. Like, it's ridiculous when you actually look back at it. And when you started talking about, you could see that. I could see that with you. You were the first broker that I'd ever seen do something that was like that. Like, there was like a fitness video. Like, and that's obviously heavily influenced by active, your brand, everything about you is fitness. That's what you do. It was really impressive because but I'm also, what I'd like to ask with this, because this has been something that I think now we look back 4 years on, you're killing it. Everybody knows who you are within that industry pretty much. I mean, maybe not at the big corporates, but we don't even care about them. Like, if you're an independent,
can't help corporates.
Yeah, you can't help people who don't want to be helped.
So
it's, but like, everyone knows who you are now, but what was that like when you first started? What was that like when you realistic? Because I know with me, like, I found it quite difficult there's a lot of backlash from the broker community because I was working in an IFA firm. How was that for you? Because you were really public, you know, with people like me and Alex Kerr, who's been on the show as well. Like we were, if you look about the product adoption curve, you know, you were the innovator of that space. You were the first one. I really think you were. I can't think of anyone else who was there before you, who actually made it big. And then me and Alex came in a little bit after you. Now everybody does it, but thanks to your million courses and the amount of people who work with you, everybody does it in a good way. But what was that like doing that, turning up every single day, doing the videos? Did you get any bad reactions? Did you get like, were you nervous? Was there any moment where you thought, this is probably not like, because it's never been done in that industry before. It was unheard of. So what was that like?
It was probably more scary from my point of view, like getting over that thing of doing video. And if you go back on my YouTube channel, for example, there's videos on my Gary Dash YouTube channel that we haven't removed because they've got too many views. But
it's not worth it.
Like, it's not worth it now to try but we've got an active mortgage one for the brokerage and we moved quite a lot of them across. But like my early ones I really cringe on, and I think everybody does. But it's that thing of, I just saw it as, if someone's asking me this question on the phone, then someone else is going to be thinking it. So all I'll do is a 1 or 2 minute video just to answer that question. So how can anybody, I've never massively been trolled from doing my mortgage content, because all I'm doing is just answering a common question. Yeah. Whereas when you realize about personal branding in particular, like my personal brand was obviously very intertwined with being the self-employed mortgage guy. But to really elevate your brand and to really change your brand, you've got to start standing for more of what you stand for and stand against. Yeah. And that means then sharing what you stand against, which some people might stand for, and therefore you're polarizing, and therefore you're going to then attract negativity potentially, or some trolling. So I've been asked this question so many times, and I can honestly say in 2016, 17, 18, probably 19, early 19, I didn't really get any negativity at all, because it was just a common, simple answer to a question, which wasn't right or wrong, and no one would really know. And, you know, I was just helping. So I'd say it's probably been, if you always do it from that point of view, building your personal brand, like one of the key things to building your personal brand is knowing your damn topic. And if all you do is talk about your topic, you build a personal brand as the self-employed mortgage guy. You don't really build a personal brand as Gary Dash. Yeah. I think the book that kind of changed it to being more Gary Dash was the thing that changed it to being more Gary Dash was when my book came out. Yeah. That was kind of where it transitioned, which then led on to a whole different business and everything else. That's
really powerful though, because I always say when I'm working with clients, I'll say like things like, the problem when you're starting a personal brand is that they come for the information, but they'll stay for you. Yeah. This is the thing that people miss. And you're so right, is you're a great example of this. Even like Gary Vee, people see this where they could look at you and they look at Gary Vee again all the time. And they'll go, oh, but Gary Vee's talking about like, so for example, I use this analogy, which you piss all over, which is a good thing. No, you haven't, as in you not as a person, but I mean like your analogy is not literally. Me agree. But it's I always say to people, look, when you're starting your personal brand, when you're starting, it's very different to see someone like you, but when you're starting, don't throw everything at the world. Don't start showing them you in the gym. Don't show them your food. Talk about your one thing and one thing only, and that's it. Now, the annoying thing then is that people could then, whenever I say it, I think people think I'm going, don't do what you do. Now, the difference is you built a brand around active mortgages. And this is what people don't get when you look at someone like Gary Vee. It's a bit like, once you've learned it all, you then unlearn it, because now they've stayed for you. Now they've understood that you've established yourself as an authority. We know that Gary knows what he's talking about. Now we can learn a little bit more about Gary. So now we can show Gary's tattoos. Now we can show Gary in the gym. Now we can show, and what they don't get, and I think it's really interesting, because I think quite a lot of people, when they hear what I say, they think that's wrong. But actually, you've done it spot on. 4 years later, you only started showing yourself in the gym a lot more in the last 6 months, 7 months, maybe. Like that is, and it's an integral part of your brand.
Yeah.
But you, for like you said, but for 3 years you just did mortgage stuff.
Yeah, I would say probably the time that I started to show more personal brand was 100% it was. I can think of it now, and I can tell you why. In 2016, I was only using social media. In 2017, I was writing my book and only using social media. When my book came out in December, I also did a speaker training course. And in 2018, I started to do public speaking. And in doing that, you have to have more of a personal brand, because you can't be a rigid stand on stage. I'm only here to talk about mortgages. It just doesn't work. So it's like, you've got to inject some personality, and you've got to kind of, I always, when I first started speaking, once I got over the real nervy bit and I started to have a bit of fun with it and I stopped being so rigid, I'd always go out and say, because I get introduced as whatever it's going to be, talking about social media marketing was what I was mostly talking about. And I'd always just say, right, guess what my job is? And I'd just get bloody personal trainer. And I'd be like, no, I'm someone with 2 GCSEs who's a mortgage broker. And ironically, I failed maths. And it's like, it would just kind of break the ice and kick it all off. And I think 2018, 2 years in, but if you go back onto my social media and I get the memories for this, there's me asking questions, and literally like we're sitting now side by side. Do you prefer Gary in the t-shirt like I'm wearing now? Or do you prefer Gary in the shirt with the dad's jumper and looking more corporate? And the audience would say 50-50, polarization. But there's all the actual journey of me trying to find my personal brand, because pre-2016, I call myself Corporate Gary. Yeah. Whereas actually, as I transitioned out of Corporate Gary, and there was the odd video with just a shirt on, there's an odd video with just a jumper, there's the odd video with a jumper and no shirt underneath. And it's sort of, I went through a phase of transitioning out of, mortgage broker Gary and into personal brand Gary.
And I think I've seen that that's actually really, it's very obvious what you say when you trace it back, because and that's something that people don't get, like you do. And I'd say that with personal branding, and that's actually really nice to hear reinforced is, I started doing this like 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago. And like my first video, I'm making a suit with like short hair and I know you don't like my hair, but what I mean is like, because you said me think, but you're like, I prefer the short, but that's what, like, for me, it was like, actually, that's how I wanted to look. I was like, like when I sat with my wife and this is where we chat about the personal brand, it was like, okay, well, how do I want people to know me as? Now that they know that I'm not, now they'll listen to me and my look doesn't matter as much. As you say, the same with you. It's like, now that you've established yourself as Gary knows what he's talking about. So it doesn't matter if Gary's going to wear shorts and flip-flops to this appointment, because that's what Gary does. And it was like, for me, that was like, actually, I'm going to start showing tattoos. I'm going to shave the side of my head. I'm going to look really like a pirate. I was like, because and I think that's really interesting, because I've seen you do that. And that's quite impressive, and also quite nice to share, because I think a lot of people could look at you and go, boom, he's just done it. And as you say, it's not the case. It's a slow burner.
It is. You don't suddenly, you don't. I always think of it almost like, training for a boxing fight or training for a boxing match. It's that point of, you can't suddenly go out and, if you're starting out, you can't go out and change absolutely everything at once. It's a development plan. You have to start off with a bit more running, and then your running gets longer. You have to train, and then your training gets longer. You start off with one nutrition plan, and then it changes over time. And by the time you get ready for the fight, where people think you're now successful because you're about to step into the ring, they don't see the whole journey that's gone to the point of getting there. Yeah. And that's the same with building your personal brand. It's like, people, as you put yourself out there, people come in and they find you at the point that they're in. And this is kind of a key thing that I talk about as well. It's like, I haven't done mortgage content in maybe 2 years. Yeah. Because we just take down an old video, we put a new banner on it, and we put slightly different color subtitles on it. I'm going to have to do soon, because these wrinkles on my forehead are getting way deeper.
Too much stress.
Yeah. That's 3 kids. But that's the thing, is it's like, once you created a bank of content, new people are coming in it all the time. So your new people who join you now won't have seen what you were doing 6, 7, 8 months ago. They're only into it now, but because you've got a bigger following, you carry more authority, and therefore there isn't so much of a, point to prove in some respects. In 2018, I had a point to prove.
Yeah.
And you change.
I think that's very true. You do have a point to prove. There's a real kind of like, we're going to do it, and it's weird. Like, I need to notice it now with bloody TikTok. Like I wake up and I'll get 300 followers. I haven't done anything. I've done nothing. I've done nothing between that time. Yeah, like to get to the first 1,000 is like rocking horse shit. And it's weird because and he says this, as you start to build, people will like you because they think, well, Gary's got a group with all of these people in it, so he must be good. It's quite incredible how that social proof works and how people interact.
Oh, without doubt.
So what's been some of the high points for you with this? I mean, why I say this is, what's been some of those moments where you think, bloody hell, like I bet you've had quite a few where you think, I cannot believe this, like my personal brand is like, this is my life right now. Like, this is what I'm doing. This is my job. Especially someone like you're a broker. What is it like? What has been some of those moments? Just share a few where you think, oh, if someone told me a year ago, 2 years ago, this would be what I would do.
What are the moments? Yeah, there is quite a few. Becoming a best-selling author in December of 2017 because of my personal brand, because of my profile. That became an Amazon bestseller in 2 categories. As a result of the book, mortgage brokers started asking out for help. So I started a Facebook group on the 19th of July, 2018. That group's now 1,600 advisors. As a result of the help that they wanted around lead generation, marketing, business development, being stuck in their business, not making enough profit, not having enough time to, see their family and their kids, and just the time consumption of it all. I just said, March 2019, I just said, hey, look, I'm getting so many business questions. I'm going to do a 3-month test. If you want to come and be coached and mentored by me, I'll do it inside a Facebook group. I'll deliver content every week. I'll help you. We had 16 people sign up in March 2019. After we had the 3 months proof of concept, when we did it again in July, we had 50 people sign up. We've now consistently since then got over 150 online mentees from inside the financial services industry who I coach. I've now formulated a 6-step process to, building a more successful financial business. I've got two online lead generation two online courses, one to be a better broker, one to generate leads. I've just launched a 3rd business where 2 other people said to me, we want to help mortgage brokers bring a new income stream in. You've got access to mortgage brokers. Can we partner? So I'm a shareholder in that business, and I deal with all the marketing and the strategy and that side of it. They do all the will writing training. So we've just launched that business, and I did 1 webinar to my mentees, and 22 of them said, yeah, we want to be trained. And we're running that training course. And yeah, it's
quite a lot, isn't it?
It's given me a second business or a third. It's given me a second business for more than 18 months. It's given me a 3rd business with 2 other people. And, the whole reason I started it is because of the mistakes that I made for 10 years building my insurance brokerage and not getting educated, not realizing that being a self-employed individual or a freelance individual is completely different to being a business owner. Yeah. And my dad's been self-employed for as long as I can remember. So I had success from 2006 till 2015. 1, because I ran a business and built a business for somebody else under their kind of mentorship for 12 months. 2, because I was selling on the markets with my dad from 13, and he's always worked at home. So I've always seen an action taker getting shit done. Yeah. 3, because he was there from 2006. If ever I had a question, he was the man to ask, and I always got my questions answered immediately, or got put in touch with an accountant, or got told to set up a separate bank account to run my company finances through. Loads of people don't get that stuff when they go self-employed. Yeah. And I just saw problems and these advisors asking me for help. And I just said, look, I don't want you to make the same mistakes I have done. I'll show you how to build a vision, how to market how to generate leads, structure your business, systemize it. And, my brokerage now, I've got an operations manager in place. It probably costs me a day a week. Yeah. And Andrew runs it, and I have a meeting with him every week. We set goals for the week and for the quarter. And, I'm strategic, I'm marketing, I'm outward focused, and I just help others build their business and remove themselves from the day to day.
One thing I say about you, knowing you and watching you drive, and David Sharpson, who's a mutual friend of ours, I always say, like, whenever someone talks to me about you, I'm like, you are the process king. Like, I literally, like, I'm the most unprocessed person in the world. But one thing that whenever I think of you, I think of process, because everything you do is efficient. And that's obviously what your business is built on. It's about efficiency, helping other brokers do it efficiently. I think that's, we talk about personal brand attributes. That's what I think of. If I think of like you, I think efficient. Like, you're very 6 steps this, quick step. Everything has been, so there's no time wasted. Like, that's what I notice with you. It's whether that is the case is a different thing. But that's what you come across as. Is everything is very. You're always striving to try and, if I can shave time there, but keep it better and more efficient for the client and for us, we can do it. And I think that's something that is quite unique to you. I don't know if was that an active choice? Excuse the pun. An active choice to actually be like, I want to be efficient, or was it like that I want people to think of me as that way? Because that's actually, whenever I speak to people and you come up in conversation, that's what whenever they always say the same thing. They're like, the guy is process driven, like everything is like, it works, it just flows.
It's interesting to hear, actually, because like that's a new thing for my personal brand that I've never kind of thought of. I just look at it from a point of view of like, so listening to this, I've just listed off, just to kind of say to people, I've just listed off a load of accolades, shall we say, that, for me, you can be proud of them, and they're things to have, and they're part of the journey, and they're part of taking on. But I'm somebody who, every school report distracts the class and is a naughty shit. And I left school with 2 GCSEs. One of them, I had to basically resit my maths, ironically, because I'm obviously quite good with numbers now, but I try not to use a calculator to test myself. So it's like I left school with 2 GCSEs. And I had to resit my maths in order to be able to get my business studies. But then when I went to college and it was GMVQ Advanced in Business, which was multiple choice questions, that's how I passed CMAT, by the way, and practical, I got an A star, because it's you within your personal brand, you have things that you are good at. So I'm good at kind of, the thing that I would say from a personal brand perspective that I think people miss is the fact of personal development. The more you understand about yourself, the more you're able to understand your skill set. And actually, I'm naturally quite lazy.
Yeah.
And when you find the 3 to 7 things that you absolutely love doing, that don't cause you that much stress, that don't really wind you up, like this podcast is work.
Yeah.
People listening to it won't realize it, but it's work. You've got to take it, you've got to edit it, you've got to put it up, you've got to make sure it goes out at the right time, you've got to make sure that you've got all the branding and everything.
Yeah.
So it's like behind the scenes, it looks great on the front end, but like I don't do any of that with my podcast because I freaking hate it. So I give it to somebody else to do. So naturally I'm lazy. I've adopted a process which is either delete, delegate, or I have to do it in that order.
Yeah.
And the thing that I realized, and I've learned since 2016, is having a process for everything. Like if you have a process in the way in which you structure this podcast, you do this podcast, you put it out, you edit it, you put it up, you do everything. If you build a process for that and you make it a process step by step, you can then give that to somebody else for somebody else to do it, which then frees your time up to do something else, which is higher value, which is make more podcasts. So process for me gives you as a person freedom, because a process can be systemized and a system can be managed by people. And that's why process and people are 2 of my big things in my 6-step process to building a business. Because it's all I've done is taken what my journey has been since 2016 and thought, how the hell have I gone from being a day-to-day mortgage broker to now running a business that technically I'm probably more of a shareholder of, because it would run without me. So how have I done that? Well, there's a process to that.
I think that's something that's really interesting. So I find, and that's why I say the process, because that's something that I have always looked up to with you, is that. And that's where I say when people say, is this thing? Because like you saying about that, like when I set my business up, when I went first self-employed as a mortgage advisor and then went self-employed into this, I always have watched you. I remember I went to one of your events. I think there's a lovely thing of me in a jumper going, Gary's the best in a video. So
and I paid you to say it.
Yeah, you did. Oh, come over here, Ash. You'll do a good one. But the one thing I have, we all look. People don't realize this, and we can look at other people and go, "Fuck me, they're killing it. Look at that," and then we don't realize what other people think of us. We think, well, they're probably looking at us going, "No, he can't do that. He's not good," or whatever. And that was one thing when I used to watch you, I think, my God, everything is so like focused in regards to like the process, and that actually changed when I said, and I think actually it was part of the reason why this business was successful is because I'd watched a lot of your content, I'd met you a few times, we chatted a lot, and I'd seen it. I actually did, and I now have, like, with everything I do now with this, like I produce content, like ridiculous amounts of content, because funny enough, you said, because I enjoy it, so I love doing it, so it just goes into a state of flow. But my biggest problem is I disappear then. So once I've made the content, then it's like, I can't be bothered to do the rest. So I have like checklists for everything. So as soon as you finish this podcast, this will be then moved. It's all right, don't worry.
Is it all right?
Fine.
That door's open. Yeah, I'll come see you in a minute. Sorry, mate.
It's all right, don't worry. It's working life, mate. It's fine.
Electrician turned up to do something in the house. I was like, shit.
But it's really interesting because, like, now, if I didn't have those processes, which, funny enough, that was something I think you learn by watching people who you look up to, who you know, who are doing it. So when I used to watch you do it, I was thinking, actually, I don't have any processes in place at all. Like, I would literally shoot a video and then have no idea where it was, what I was doing with it. And now with this, it's like 10 steps. So as soon as I make any piece of content, it goes everywhere, because otherwise, and that only came from, like, otherwise it's just a waste of time. And that only came from watching you. So that's funny that you say as an attribute to you, something you should lean into more then is you are like the process king, because people do look up to you on that. I think that's a big
interesting. Yes, I always reference it. Like, I'm self-taught on computers and things like that, and it's kind of that thing of my brain works a little bit like a computer, in the sense of it wants to find any time that it can save anywhere at all to be more efficient and to shave off seconds, because seconds add up to minutes to hours and everything else. So yeah, thanks for that. That was a kind word said and a new little thing for me to think about.
It is, mate. It definitely is. So for last little bit, just want to ask you, there's two questions I'd like to ask before we wrap it up. And these are two. I'm very excited for this one for you. So first one is, the reason why I like this one is, what is the definition of personal branding to you? And the reason why I asked this is I got a message from you at the beginning of the year going, I don't agree with your definition. So it got me thinking. And actually, it's why I say this is, everybody has a different definition of personal branding. This episode is well into the 60s, I think, of episodes, maybe in the 70s. And I've asked this question to multiple different people, and everyone comes back with a different response, but very similar at the outset. And the reason why I ask it is, a lot of people, it's a bolt-on. I don't know if it feels like a bolt-on to digital marketing or this, but people who are very successful in it understand it deeper. So I'd love to know, if I was to ask you, what does personal branding mean? I know you do presentations on this as well. So what does personal branding mean to Gary Das? What does that mean? The word, the term.
What does personal brand mean to me? And I can't remember what the hell I said to you at the beginning of the year.
You said something, and I can't remember what it was either. But I remember going, I can't remember what it was. I said personal branding was reputation management, and you were like, I don't agree.
That's right. Don't tell me what I said though. I remember it now. Reputation management. So yeah, I think personal branding is effectively who you are and who you are, the makeup of you, what you stand for, what you stand against, what your values are, and what's most important to you in the world, because that forms your personal brand. Because you will only ever do the things that are on your highest priority list, and you'll only do them if they're your values. Now, as a business owner, when you understand what your personal brand is and what your values are, that enables you to create a business brand based on your personal brand. And therefore, you can then create product brands underneath your business. So the perfect example of that is Richard Branson or Steve Jobs. You know, they've got a personal brand, it's happy go, or let's take Branson, it's happy go lucky, it's having loads of fun, it's doing things in his 60s and 70s that probably you should only be doing in your 20s because you might break a hip or something. And he's built a business brand off of serving people that are in his ideal client demographic and his ideal client age. Basically, people like him. Whenever I get people to do the whole who's your perfect client and who do you want to deal with, if you actually look at it, it generally comes back to people like you, because that's who we like to spend around with. So they say that the average of the, you know, you are the average of the 5 people that you hang around most with. That's your personal brand. It's the commonalities, it's the similarities, it's the, you know, I'd much rather hang out with fitness people and people who have got something, an interest in fitness, because we can have a great conversation about it. I was going to say rather than tech geeks, but actually I quite like a bit of tech.
You probably do.
Rather than my best mate earlier, who I was talking to, who turned around and said, yeah, we bought this house and it's probably like a 20-year project and there's a lake at the bottom of the garden and we can go fishing and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, you're my best mate. I love you to pieces and we have a good banter and we've been mates since we were 15 years old. But give me a landing page and an email sequence and a spreadsheet and a desk any day than digging out some crappy pond.
I couldn't think of anything worse. I think me and you are definitely on the same wavelength there, mate. So
yeah, my personal brand, to summarize, I think is your values, and I think it's your personal development. And the more you understand them, the more you take them to the world, the more you will attract the people that you want to attract.
I like that. Do you want to know the best one I've heard so far, which literally blew me away? I had a guy.
You mean it wasn't mine?
No, sadly, mate, it wasn't. It's because you can nick this one now. This is as in this one, and because I nick it, Philip knows. Philip Van Dusen came on the podcast, and he's got about 200,000 subscribers on his YouTube channel. He's like the guy. If you write personal branding in, he's the #1 guy on YouTube. He's like amazing. And I said to him, everyone does that, me included. We go into like, this is the explanation, and he literally went. I said, "What does personal branding mean?" He just went, "One word, insurance." And I was like, "Okay." And then he went, ensuring that your business and yourself is protected for anything from like, you know, so you could now set up so multiple different businesses from the back of your, just because you've built a personal brand. So you're ensuring your career by building it. And I was like, yeah, it was a bit like a
one word, insurance.
He said personal brand is insurance. He said it's nothing else but insurance. And I was like, okay. And it was one of those ones where, like you, I was thinking, you got me thinking there, because it's not like I'd ever heard it done before.
It's a good one,
especially your industry. So it's going to be one of those where
that's what made me think, what?
Yeah, because that's what I did when he said it, and then he was like, "No, you're insuring your future."
You know what? Okay, so I want to change that slightly, having it resonated more. If I was going to choose one word,
go on then.
I would say asset.
That's good.
If I was going to, I'm letting that's sinking in terms of the insurance, and I absolutely love it because it is so true. But I actually think, and you are an asset. Now that can also be a negative.
Yes.
Because insurance can be a negative, in the sense of, if you look at Tony Robbins, who's only built a brand off of the back of him being Tony Robbins, no one else can hold an audience for 10,000. And I felt really peed off when I went and he only turned up for a third of the weekend. Yeah. Because it's his name above the door, which is why I prefer the whole thing of Branson linking to Virgin, Steve Jobs linking to Apple, that kind of thing. So it's
actually quite interesting, because you're right with that. Tony Robbins, I got really annoyed with his podcast, because his podcast has some woman who's his main coach, but that's not Tony Robbins' podcast.
Unsubscribe.
Yeah, that's exactly. I was like, no, I'm not listening to. He might come in every now and then, or he does an advert at the beginning. But I was like, but this isn't a Tony Robbins podcast.
Exactly.
That's very good, actually. So it is an asset, and it can be used, but can be used in the wrong way if not.
And it's like using a house. You know, if you've got people in property that listen to this, it's like using a house, but the house can have multiple uses. The house could be a HMO, it could be a buy-to-let, it could be a residential home.
Yes.
So it's like your personal brand asset can have multiple different uses based on what you choose to do with it. It's, you know, mine's the owner of a brokerage, but it's also the coach and mentor to hundreds of advisors online or whatever. It's
yes, because your personal brand as well.
It is an insurance. It is an asset.
If you think about it with you and like Jack, so that's where I would think you and Jack are like one thing I like what you've done is the two of you are like a pack. Like it's like a Gary V and D-Rock type thing. Like there's a real, and that's where you see like if you were at an event and then Jack ran the event, I don't think it would bother me. Because you're close. I think that's something that I think really good personal brands do is they start to bring other people in. So even you saying you're doing that with Andrew, like if I'm going to talk to you about finance, Andrew's there, like that. It's bringing people into that brand, isn't it? That's quite clever. I never thought about that before. Got my head spinning. This has been a head fuck one today.
Yeah, I'm still thinking about that insurance one as well.
Around.
I like it.
I'll give you some 3 easy ones now. This is the last question, and then we'll give you some time to wrap it up. But the last question is: if someone is starting their personal brand right now, they came to you, and like, what 3 pieces of advice would you say to get off the ground? What are the 3 things you think people need to do when it comes to personal branding?
So within lead generation, I have a 3-step process, funnily enough, for generating leads. I have got a 3-step process. And ironically, in our industry, we have competent advisor status, whereby you're competent at being a mortgage advisor or in financial services. I spun it and changed it to customer attention and sales. So if you're going to do 3 things to build your personal brand, the first thing is you need to know who your ideal customer is. Once you know who your ideal customer is, it makes it much easier to utilize your personal brand, but also your business brand to grab their attention. So customer attention. Once you've then grabbed their attention, you're basically pre-selling them into buying from you. So it then makes it easier to sell to them, but also to sell them from the attention that you grab onto joining your database or submitting an inquiry via your website or going to your podcast or going to your book or going to your blogs, whatever it might well be. So know your customer, grab their attention, and you'll double your sales as a result.
There you go, Mr. Process. I told you, you're that process king. Because just before we give you your time to sell, you had an acronym for ACTIVE. What was that?
Affordability, criteria, terms, identify, victory, and become entrepreneurial with property.
There you go. See, so you missed the process. That's what I mean. Everything you do is processed. I'm thinking, bloody hell. So,
but
Gary,
this is the thing is if you create a process for things like service-based businesses.
Yeah.
So as a service-based mortgage broker, I'm not pitching my service. I'm selling you a product that will get you your home, because we will look at the affordability, which will enable us to identify the criteria, which ensures that you get the best terms. So you can go and identify your house, knowing that you've got the finance ready in place, which almost guarantees your victory. And that's the thing is it becomes, so when everyone's thinking about their personal brand, it's how can I productize this? Yeah. And the productization is that point of, we were talking about your coaching program earlier. And my first question was, what's your process for the 8 weeks?
Yeah.
Because in taking that, you're not then selling an 8-week coaching program. You're selling a process that gets them to an outcome that they desire.
Yeah. So
in the same way that I've also met a guy back in 2016 who used to charge, I don't know if he still does, but he used to charge £2,500 for a 12-week, it might have been 14-week dietary and training program for ladies who wanted to get into their wedding dress. Now, how much do you think? Now, what's the average 12-week program cost you? 500 quid with most personal trainers?
Oh my God, yeah. No more than that. No more than that.
But he knew his customer. Mm-hmm. Ladies who wanted to get fit for their wedding. He knew how to grab their attention because he had all that stuff, which made it piss easy for him to sell to them.
That's very clever. See, I do love that. I do love that, mate.
And that was his personal brand. And he basically used to go out and say, look, I make fat women perfect for their wedding day.
Yeah.
And it's like,
but you're selling,
polarizing, but that's his brand.
I love that when you talk about trying. That's so good, because that's like selling high ticket items. You can't focus on the hourlies and the sessions. You've got to focus on the end result, isn't it? And I think that's what a lot of people miss. So talking about coaching programs and all that stuff. Obviously, this is the end of the interview, mate. You've been an absolute pleasure. Where can people, if they want to work with you, if they want to connect with you, where is the best place for them to do? What do you have on offer for them?
Yeah, so I'm Gary Das, and this is kind of a personal brand tip, as you like to say, personal branding tip. is make sure that you've got the same @ name wherever you can on all social media channels. So mine is @GaryDass. You'll find me all there. We've got the Active Mortgage website if you're buying a home or investing in property. We've got the Financial Pro official website where you can find out all about my coaching programs, courses, and communities. And the best one to look at if you want to go to my most people that I work with, I do one-to-one and group mentoring and coaching, but I only do that with action takers, and I find the action takers through my Financial Pro Academy, which we have a waiting list for, and we open it every quarter to let new people in, because we go really hard on making sure that we give people the right start in the academy so they understand how to use it. It's like the Financial Pro Academy. It's for anyone in financial services, but it's like the gym of building your financial services business. So inside our training portal is all the equipment that you need, but if you don't utilize it, you don't get the result. In the same way that if you can go to a gym, it could be the best gym in the world, but if you don't get into the right habits initially, you don't get the right start. Therefore, you don't become consistent. Therefore, you don't start new habits. So we only open the academy quarterly, and I think we'll probably be open around the time of this going out. So come and check out financialpro-academy.com.
Brilliant. I think I've got Jack sent me all the links, so they're all going to go into there. So guys, if you listen to this or watching this on YouTube, then make sure you just check it out in the description. Gary, mate, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. I've loved it, nerding out on personal branding, and it's just great, mate. Thank you so much for coming on. I'm going to run the outro, which, guess what, guys, if you're watching, it's just so there you have it, guys. That's the end of that interview with Gary. What a legend. What an absolute legend. Hope you enjoyed that one today. I always enjoy catching up with Gary. Obviously me and him do go back from the beginning with mortgages, and it's just a good catch up. And every time I meet him, he's always doing something else ridiculously impressive. So he's now, if you haven't seen him already, you can check him out on Clubhouse. He's killing it on Clubhouse at the moment. Again, @GaryDass. So check him out on Clubhouse. He's destroying it on there. So it's well worth a check out on that. So guys, if you've enjoyed today's show and you really like it, I've got obviously my standard places you can go. Make sure if you've enjoyed the show to smash the subscribe button and ring the bell if you're on YouTube to be kept up to date with all the latest and greatest personal branding content. If you listen to us on iTunes or Spotify, make sure to leave us a review and tell all your friends. It's the best show in the world. Share it around. If you want to take your business to the next level, then you can check out my free resources. I've got 3 things to talk about today with them. The first one is Optimize to Generate Business Through LinkedIn. Brilliant course, a very, very high quality course that I used to sell a lot. I sold it pretty much the first part of 2020. Had a ton of people go through it. Had a ton of success. But now I've decided, I've moved it into a free course. It's had hundreds of people go through it now. So check it out. Make sure you have a look at it. And the Social Media 101 is the other course designed for beginners who've never done social media before. Everything they need to know about basic social media in one place. So there are 2 free courses. The link is in the description to be able to check them out. Just ashborland.com/free. You're going to see all the free resources. And then if you want to take your personal brand to that next level, the first bit for, as Gary says, looking for action takers, that's what I'm always doing, is come and join one of my personal branding ecosystem workshops. So a personal brand ecosystem workshop is free. They're every single Wednesday, UK time at 7 p.m. till 8:30. They're a 90-minute interactive workshop. They're limited spaces each week. So make sure you get your, book your space now. The link is in the description for that anywhere you go, but check it out. It's a good one. They're really, really useful, and a lot of people get a lot of benefit from them, and they give you a basic understanding before then to be able to move into any of the other paid stuff if you want to, but check it out. Okay, so as always, guys, my name is Ash Borland, personal branding coach, helping you embrace your individuality and stand out from the crowd so you can build a profitable and, more importantly, sustainable personal brand business. I'm going to see you next time. Okay, bye.
say that I hardly recognise who I am now for the work that I've done with him.
He really understood what it was that my business required in order to start taking it to the next level.
Ash has given me the basic knowledge of content creation, allowing me to feel comfortable on camera.
You're wanting someone to help you with your business, and especially personal branding. Ash will help. Ash can help. He's done wonders for me and my business.
It was absolutely awesome. I came away with so much knowledge that I'm ready just to take on the world.
Recommend joining Ash Borland's Personal Branding Mastery Programme if you want to grow your business, generate more sales, or just aspire to be social media famous.